And welcome everyone. We should be live. Hi Roberta, hi Natalie, hi again Tish and Trish and Marilyn, welcome. And Pisas and everyone that I've missed. Welcome to Godalming. So we've got about 12 minutes before to start. I just connected a bit early to give time for everyone to connect. So if any of you was watching this on replay in the next few days or weeks, if you wanted to skip the hellos on the casual chat at the beginning, feel free to skip the next 12 minutes. So we still have time to get to know each other. Let us know where you're connecting from. And welcome Marianne. Pesky rain. Yes, it's horrible. It's the worst weather we could have because, the worst weather I can have because it's very difficult with it's windy and rainy at the same time, so it's very difficult to keep stuff dry. Hi Nikki, nice to have you here. So we've got about 11 minutes before to start. You got a message that it was 5:30. Oh, interesting. And welcome Julie from New England. Nice to have you here. And hello Joy. So we've got about 10 minutes to go. Yeah, it was lovely and sunny this morning because I came here because I actually never came here before. So I was here all day to check the route and do my homework basically. But yeah, it's a shame because it's much nicer when it's sunny. But hey ho. All right, let me stand up. I was just there trying to keep the stuff dry, but we're gonna have to move anyway. Ooh, you're expecting snow. Wow. And Laurie is here. Welcome, Laurie. So let me flip this camera around because I have to zoom in on my face to keep the camera dry. So if you see the view. So we still have about 10 minutes to go. We're just waiting for everyone to connect. So if anyone was completely new to me, we have a little live. We'll explore the streets of Godalming. We'll explore the streets of Godalming and I'll tell you some dark tales and some true crime. But we still have about 10 minutes, so we're waiting for everyone to connect. It's nice to have rain. Well, if I can send the rain over to Athens, I'd love to do that. And yes, exactly, a cemetery. So we're actually just about 20 minutes away from the high street. So we'll explore a bit of the cemetery first, and then we'll head into town. You'll see Godalming is lovely because there are a lot of listed buildings. The town itself, it's very old with some Tudor buildings and everything. I just wish the rain stopped for a while. That'll be much nicer. Nice weather for a cemetery. Yeah, although I like them in the sun as well. Yeah, if it wasn't windy, because it's just very tricky to keep all the gimbal and the camera dry when it's raining and windy in the same time. And I already had such a bad weather last Tuesday. Remember when we were in Stoke Newington? when I finished the tour last Tuesday, I had to, would you believe, I had to go into someone's porch. Like, because I had, to put my gimbal away, to put the phone in my in my bag and get all my waterproof ready for cycling. I just have to be in a shelter for a minute or two. It's just, I just simply cannot do it, under an umbrella because I need my hands. And so I spotted, there was literally no shelter there. So I spotted a house that didn't have any lights on, and I went into their porch. Hope they didn't have a camera. What if they did? They probably saw that I was innocently getting my waterproof on. You're supposed to be getting snow. I apologize in advance, by the way, if the umbrella gets in the frame at any points, but sometimes when it's windy, we have to. Let me see. Hi, Caroline, and welcome everyone that I might have missed. So we've got 7 minutes. Oh, I see an email. I think someone sent me a tip. Thank you very much in advance if you are in a position to do so. I don't see them live on screen if it's on Buy Me a Coffee or on PayPal, but it's very, very much appreciated. Thank you very much. Especially today, actually, because I have to pay for the train, and the signal was crap on the high street, so I had to pay for internet on my second SIM card. So I need to get a few tips, otherwise I'll be actually losing money. You were supposed to have rain as well, Pisas. And Mark is here. Welcome, Mark. So we've got about, let me check, 6 minutes. 6 minutes to go. And it is about 6:20 p.m. UK time. We've just moved to British summertime, so it's going to be bright a bit later on. And welcome, Sarah. Welcome to sunny Surrey. No, it's not sunny. It's wet, well wet. So we are in Godalming. Do we happen to have anyone completely new to me? Let me know in the chat if you happen to be new. Salut, Mike. I'm gonna get my little thing to dry the gimbal already. I came prepared because last time it was so soaked. I was really scared for my... Oh, you know what? I'm gonna move this camera. You don't zoom in on my face. Let's do it like this. It's easier. It doesn't look like summer, no. It did this morning. Well, it wasn't really warm, but it was lovely and sunny this morning. And I had a bit of hope. The forecast was not best, but I had a bit of hope because it looked so beautiful. But no, didn't last. And actually, I was in a pub having a coffee. And the minute I walked out, I was in a pub named after this guy. See the grave here? I'll tell you a bit more about him in a moment, the one straight ahead. But yeah, the minute I came out, of course, that's when it started raining. So now I've been in the rain for over an hour, just waiting for the time to be time to get ready. Hello, fellow followers. Oh, Julia, you're new. Welcome. Nice to have you along. Sorry, I probably sound quite grumpy at the moment. I'm not. I'm usually a bit happier. So we've got a few minutes before to start. We'll have a little walk where I'll tell you about some local true crime, historical true crime, and some dark tales. So we are in the Nightingale Cemetery because we are on, well, just off Nightingale Road. And let me see how long. 3 minutes. 3 minutes to go. Just trying the gimbal again. Bear with me if it's moving a bit. Just trying to keep it as... Oh well, it's been wet a few times and it's not died so far, so we should be all good. Oh yeah, when you watch it on the TV, you don't really have the chat. But some people put it on TV and on their phone at the same time, so you can chat on your phone and watch it on TV, I think. And Sandrine is in the house. Welcome, Sandrine. Welcome to rainy Surrey. April showers, yeah. Well, yeah, I guess I'm in the middle of one April shower. Yeah. I'm gonna be glad to get home. Well, I still have about 50 minutes of train and then half an hour cycling, and then I'll be home. Right, let me check the time. It might be time to go. 1 minute. Oh, TV and mobile phone in the same time. Yeah, I think it's the easiest way, Mary, when you want to chat. And Ronnie is here. Welcome, Ronnie. Right, I guess it's probably time to start, so welcome everyone. It is 6:30 p.m. UK time and we are in Godalming in Surrey. So as you might see, it's a bit wet today, so forgive the camera if it gets in the frame. And if anyone was completely new to me, I'm Natalie. You're very welcome, and let's go. Let me flip this camera around. So we are in the Nightingale Cemetery. It had to be built outside of Godalming in Victorian times because, of course, the little local graveyard was completely saturated. We'll go and see the local graveyard as well in a moment. But for now, let's have a look at this grave here. I'm purposely showing you the back of it because I want you to guess. What do you think it represents? Any idea what this might be? What could this represent? Let me know what you think it might be. The sculpture itself, what could that be? Any guesses? It's not an easy one. I don't think it's particularly resembling, but what... Oh, Mike, you know what? You're so good. Well done, Mike. A castle it could be. No, Mike, you've got it. It is indeed an iceberg. It is a monument for a chap called John George Phillips, also known as Jack Phillips. He was the radio operator on the Titanic, a cat. So yeah, I'll tell you a bit more about him in a moment because he's got a little memorial garden here as well because he was from around here. This is actually his family grave. So his body is not here because his body is probably 4 kilometers underwater, but that's a little memorial for him and his family grave. Now, I'll tell you a little bit more about Jack in a moment, but for now, let's go and see another lady. Her name is Emily Joy. So this part of the cemetery in the east, it's consecrated by the Church of England, in the west, sorry. No, in the east, and moving towards the west, it's gonna be towards the non-conformist or any other religion. there were quite a few nonconformists around here, so that's why the cemetery is divided into two. Oh, Chris, you're from around here, so yeah, you might know the Titanic connection. So Jack Phillips is a local hero. If you consider him a hero, some consider him partially responsible, but a lot of people are partially responsible when it comes to the Titanic, because it was a series of errors that led to that horrible disaster. But we'll talk about him in a little while. For now, let me see where Emily is. She should be here. Emily, where are you? Yes, there she is. I was going too far. So Emily Joy, her funeral was a massive event. Thousands of people came here, and the grave and the funeral was actually paid by the local community because her mother didn't have that much money. She was sadly a murder victim, 19 years old. Let me show you the writing. It says at the bottom, no time for thought, no moment for a prayer. So sudden was the spirit's violent flight. So this is young Emily, a beautiful girl that died in 1889. Sorry. So we're talking just after the Ripper murders in London. Emily was 19. She was living about 10 minutes down towards my left here with her mother. Her mother was widowed, and Emily was also helping her mum financially. And she had met a young man called Jenkins, and they were planning to marry. Now, you know, like any parent, Emily's mum was very worried, you know. You never know if it's the right man. Emily seemed to be very much in love with I think his name was Ebenezer Jenkins. I like that little grave here as well, this one. And so she's very much in love, but of course her mum is very worried. Because, well, Jenkins was a bit odd. He was very mysterious about his past, and he was an artist. He lived here in Godalming as a painter. He was painting backdrops, you know, background scenery for the local moving theaters. But that didn't seem to be a great source of income. But he had claimed that when he was 20 at the time, that when he'd reached the age of 30, he'd get a lot of money, £300. And he had some good relations in Dorking, and even received, so one day he was staying at Emily's mum, he even received a telegram from the bank confirming that he would indeed get that money at the age of 30. So Emily's mum started to relax, and eventually she did agree that they could get married in March. And on Christmas Day, he sent her a letter, again confirming that he was in a position to marry, he had a decent income, that he had never committed any offense upon a young lady. That was a bit odd, but, you know, good. And she did start to get a bit suspicious, though, because every time he spoke about his family or his upbringing, it just wasn't very consistent. One day he even almost almost insinuated that he had been adopted, but then he didn't follow up on that. She just didn't, you know, when you have a gut feeling about someone. But our daughter was very much in love, so they agreed. They agreed they should marry. Now, the two would see each other they had seen each other for nearly a year, but you know, at the time, a girl from a good family, she wouldn't really go out alone with a young man, you know. They'll, or at least not in a private place, you know, they'll always be in a place with witnesses. And one day, she asked him to come to his studio. He asked her to come to his studio on the high street, his artist studio. Now, usually they would have said no straight away. By the way, little pause in the story. Red Mini. I've seen quite a few Red Minis today. Can anyone guess? There's a famous movie, a romantic comedy that was filmed here with a Red Mini. Any guesses? Do you remember a movie? It's partially set in California and partially set in Surrey. A romantic comedy. Let's see if anyone remembers. I'll give you another clue. One of the actresses was made famous by a movie about the disaster we just spoke about, the Titanic, and the other actress is American, the one with the red Mini. Exactly, you got it, Adam. The Holiday. So the Holiday is minis everywhere. Look, another one. I used to have a red Mini. Well, an old one. That was my first car. But anyway, so yeah, the Holiday. I'll show you where in a moment. There's one scene where Cameron Diaz doesn't understand how to. Well, she understands how to drive on the left, but those skinny streets, you know, when you come from America, it's quite difficult to be driving on those tiny skinny streets. And there's one thing here, one scene where she speeds up in central Godalming. And she's basically struggling with the driving. I'll show you where in a moment. Anyway, let's get back to poor Emily. So Jenkins asked her to come to visit his studio. Usually it would have been a big no. You don't go alone with a gentleman anywhere, you know, in Victorian times. But he said that there were going to be a lady there, Mrs. Elliot. Mrs. Elliot, she owed him some money. Because that was one of the other things that seemed a little bit suspicious for Emily's mum. It's that he claimed to have some earnings, he claimed to have some money, yet he was always asking Emily for money. And she would gladly give it to him because she loved him so much. And that day he said, yeah, come to my studio. Mrs. Elliot will be there. She owes me £14. So she'll give it back to me. I'll give it back to you. And then you can see my paintings. So Emily and Emily's mum agreed that she could go, knowing that it was not going to be the two of them. And when they got to the studio, there was no sign of Mrs. Elliot. It was indeed just the two of them. And let me show you. We spoke about those letterboxes, didn't we, in my tours before? I told you that it's mainly outside of London that you have those defibrillators. Look, this one has a defibrillator. So if you suffer from cardiac problems, I suggest you buy this home. This way you are safe. If you happen to have a heart attack, you call 999 and they'll give you the code so you can straight away use the defibrillator. Right, probably. The minis, yeah, well, you know what? The old minis, they were actually skinny, so they were actually good on the little streets. Oh, another red mini, look, they're everywhere. And I don't know if they've all seen the movie, so they all bought the same. Maybe the movie made it fashionable, but they are everywhere. So anyway, yeah, those minis, they're not actually that skinny. They're not too long, but in terms of the space on the street, I don't think they're that small. You might want to buy a Smart. It's probably smaller. Anyway, let's get back to poor Emily. Sorry, I don't want to be splashed here. He got her into her studio. He started to show her some kind of financial papers. And then, so again, that's according to what he later said when he got caught. He said to her, "Do you love me?" She said yes. And he must have taken it as a green light. He basically attacked her. He smashed her face, and he actually broke some of the bones in her face, and then raped her. And then he panicked. Surely you couldn't do that to a lady from high society, even if they were engaged, and he strangled her. He strangled her. He left her there and left the studio, and he was gone. Now, sadly, there were some witnesses that had heard some kind of noises coming from the studio, but they didn't really click. They didn't think it was that bad. He left the studio and he went straight to a pub. I'll show you the pub at the end of the tour. It's called the Sun. He actually spoke to quite a few people in the pub, telling them he was going to go to Egypt. Egypt was probably the most exotic place he could possibly think of. And then he wrote a letter, another red mini. Then he wrote a letter to his future mother-in-law, saying he was ever so sorry. They loved each other so much. They had gone forever, and saying that he wanted to be buried with her. So he was at the time probably considering suicide, or at least he was trying to look like if he was. We probably will never know. And sorry. Thank you. And so yeah, he's at the pub. He's telling everyone about Egypt. Then he got a bit tipsy. He left the pub, and on the street he met a random guy called Harry Pennycoat. And they spoke, but he was being very odd. He said to him, "Do you know of any girls?" And the guy is like, "Do you think I've got a brothel or what?" And he offered him to smoke a pipe together. The guy refused. They chatted for a while, but very odd conversation. And eventually, he gave Harry his those little cufflinks, those little things that we used to have to close our shirts. Those cufflinks, they're probably the most expensive item he had on him. And that was really odd that he gave them to a stranger. The guy at first refused, and then he was like, "Yeah, you know what? Why not? Because it had a great value at the time. Those little cufflinks." Or maybe was it just trying to make it look like if he was going to kill himself? Because if indeed you give your most valuable item to a stranger, it's probably that you're planning to end your life. Or maybe he was really planning to. We will never know. He walked. We don't really know what he was up to that night. And then the next day, about midday, he ended up in a pub about 10 miles out of Godalming, and he's in a very sorry state. He's really all over the place, and the pub landlord asked him what he was up to, what happened to him. So he made up a story tale. By the way, behind those trees there, that was the spot of the last public execution in Godalming in 1818. Thousands and thousands of people came to see. It was a double hanging. But again, I'll tell you a bit more about that case in a moment. For now, let's go back to let's go back to Jenkins. So he's in the pub and he made up a story. He told the pub owner that he was in a relationship with a girl, and together they had decided to commit suicide. They had done a suicide pact, and they were on a bridge when she jumped. He was meant to follow, and he did not have the courage. And he was, according to what he told the guy, petrified. He couldn't jump. And the guy was like, did you try to save her? He said, no, I was too petrified, and I need to speak to the police. I need to tell the police what happened. So the landlord was like, that's good, because I was gonna go to Guildford today. I can drop you at the police station. And the landlord's wife was really scared of him, so she didn't want to be alone with him. So together they left on their cart towards Guildford. We are not far from Guildford. It's just I don't know, about 15 minutes away. And on the way, he decided, he changed his mind. He was like, no, I'm not going. I changed my mind. And the pub landlord was like, no, you coming. You need to speak to the police. You're coming. And that's when he ended up telling all the truth. So he ended up telling everything to the gentleman, completely confessing his murder. And that's when he was taken to the police station and arrested. Now we'll get back to that very sorry tale in a moment, because I'll show you on the high street the pub. But for now, let's have a little look. So we were talking about Jack Phillips earlier. You know, the iceberg monument. So this is a little park for him, a little memorial park. So very beautiful, and it's all for his memory. So now I'm sure a lot of you know you probably know everything about the Titanic, but basically the radio operators, it was still a fairly new technology, so they were like the geeks of the time, you know. And what happened is that Jack, or John, was the chief radio operator there. He that night he received a message from another ship, the Californian, saying, iceberg, we stuck into iceberg, basically telling the Titanic to be careful. Now, those radio codes, they were Morse code. So to us, it would just sound like beep, 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 beep. It was all codes. And apparently those young men, they all knew each other. You know, they were probably all trained at the very same school. And Phillips was actually very busy because they were around Cape Race. So they were close to the land. And those radio operators, they were actually communicating for passengers as well. It was not only for emergency. It was actually rarely for emergency. It was mainly for passengers to talk to their loved ones, or to book a hotel in New York, or whatever it might be. And there was a lady, actually a famous actress at the time, Dorothy Gibson. She was using the radio operator to communicate with her lover in America. So the young Jack, he was 25 years old. He was very busy communicating with Cape Race when he got the message from the Californian. And so the message about the iceberg, and he famously replied, shut up, I'm busy. Now, it might sound extremely rude and irresponsible, but actually that's the way those young men spoke to one another. They would, for example, say GTHOMQRL, which is go to hell, old men. They called each other OM, old men. Shut up, I'm busy. So that's the way they spoke to one another. So some said that the California radio operator got offended and went to bed. Yeah, he did go to bed. Did he get offended? Probably not. It was the way they spoke to one another. They called each other old men, and they told each other to shut up all the time, because when you were trying to communicate on the radio, there were so many radios at the same time, especially when you were close to the coastline, because you had those amateurs using radios as well, and all the signals would come together. So whatever his excuse was, at that moment, he did not pass on this information to the bridge. Now, one can argue that they already knew. They already knew about iceberg. The captain had decided to go full speed because they wanted the Titanic to arrive early. And they were already meant to have a gentleman watching for iceberg on the top. And this little, see the Victorian bandstand there, they have little concert in the summer every Sunday apparently, so that's a cool place. So yeah, so that's why some say that Jack Phillips was actually partially responsible. In his defense, the radio system was not taken very seriously at the time. It was used for passengers a lot, and the captains, they often relied more on those kind of like fireworks, that they'll do from their boats. And so the California, sadly, the operator put himself to bed, so they didn't have to be on 24/7. They had shifts, and they would go to sleep. So the Californian could have rescued the Titanic later on, but the radio was not on. The operator was sleeping, and Jack later on, so of course we know the story, the iceberg, the Titanic went straight into an iceberg, the Titanic started taking water, and then Jack worked very bravely. He kept sending messages to the other boats, so he was basically sending SOS signals. It was, they would, at the time they didn't say that much SOS, but they would say CQD. Seeking you distress. So he would be like, it's a CQD, old man, it's a CQD, old man, it's a CQD, it's a CQD. And until eventually another ship called the Carpathia picked it up and literally turned around, and we know the story. The Carpathia came on they expected to see the Titanic very badly damaged, or maybe in the process of sinking, but it took them 4 hours to. They bravely went full speed into the ice as well. They were well aware of the risk, but they wanted to rescue the passengers. And when the Carpathia arrived, sadly the Titanic was already underwater. They rescued, I think it's 705 passengers from the lifeboats. And Jack, he was already dismissed. He could have jumped on the lifeboat, but no, he decided to walk. He stayed at his position, sending radio signal, asking for help until the very last moment. So he actually sank with the Titanic. So that's why his body is not at the graveyard, and that's why he's such a hero in this town. He was from here, well, from Farncombe, it's just above Godalming. And very sad story, of course. And there are so many little mistakes that could have been avoided. Even after that, so the California was not far, but their radios were off. The captain was awake, and the Titanic, they had those. I don't know how you call them. It's some kind of a firework to ask for help. But stupidly, they didn't bring any red ones. They had some white ones only. So the California, they saw those white signals in the air, but they didn't know what the Titanic was up to, because they were meant to be red. SOS was meant to be red. So the Californian didn't do anything. They were actually fairly close. They potentially could have got there before the Carpathia, but they just didn't know, because the radio operator was in bed. Anyway, very sad story, and we are now in the town center. So this is the really the historical part of town. We are on Church Street, and that's where it looks a bit like a movie set. It's a bit nicer when the weather is nice, really. But Godalming, it's actually we believe named after an old Saxon king that conquered the area known as Godalming. That's yet to be proven, but that's probably where it comes from. And we are about 30 miles from London, 49 kilometers to be precise. And about 300 of those buildings are actually listed for their historical importance. So some of them are from the 16th century, so a lot of Tudor buildings, a lot of Jacobean buildings. So that's quite cool. It's so quiet. It was so busy, so much busier this morning. Look at those amazing beams there. The main industry here used to be wool and knitting, and later on paper production and tanning as well. They have a lot of old pubs, including this one here. And it is here, let me give you a good angle. So it is here that Cameron Diaz comes with a Red Mini. So most of the holiday, the British part, it's actually filmed in Surrey. It's not too far from here. I might try to take you to Surrey one day. It's a beautiful little village. Maybe not live because I don't know if I'll get a good signal, but I could try to do a video there one day. So that's where in the movie Kate Winslet character lives. And so for those of you that don't know the movie at all, basically it's two ladies going through a love disappointment, and they decided to exchange their homes. So they exchange homes and cars, one Californian, one lady from Surrey. And so Cameron Diaz comes here. It's a very snowy day with a Red Mini. Let me show you the photos. I've got another one. There we go. So filming location right here. And we are gonna go on Main Street just to show you the most haunted home in town. Oh, sorry, I just removed this one. There we go. So the white building there at the end of the street, that's meant to be the most haunted house in Godalming. It's still there. I've just removed it. Hold on, bear with me. Go away. There we go. Allegedly, it is said that one of the former owners took his own life. He managed to hang himself from one of the beams in the roofing. We don't know if that's true. There's no evidence of that. But since that day, there have been sightings. Some say that that very room is haunted. Some say that you can see him staring through the windows sometimes. The window at the top floor. See those windows at the top, by the way, they're quite typical of the city. Same here with the white greenish building. They usually had windows quite far up because they were in the knitting industry. They wanted to use as much light as they could, daylight, and so that's why they had a lot of windows at the top. And let's go into the high street. There was a lady there. I thought she was a statue for a while, and then she moved. That's why I went, oh. Anyway, I didn't want to put her on camera, but she looked like a statue to me. Right. That sounds like a nice pub, the Fox and Finch. Right, so this is the high street. And one more or two more telephone boxes. Those ones do not have a defibrillator. And this letterbox is not too old because it is Queen Elizabeth II, Elizabeth Secunda Regina. Now, there's another horrible murder, really, that happened, or double murder, I should say, that happened here on the high street. It is the case that led to the double execution that we mentioned earlier in the meadow. But first, let me show you the peppercorn. See this little building here? It's the former town hall. It is known as the peppercorn. I'll show you why, because in a pepper pot, sorry, not peppercorn, what am I saying? They had those pepper pot in Georgian times. So that was, I don't know why they have those shapes, but yeah, that was the old Georgian pepper pots. Did Charles get any post box yet? Yes, Sarah, there's one somewhere I think it's in Wales, but it's not a nice one at all. It's the cipher is not even in 3D, it's printed. It's a very modern one, so I'm hoping we'll have some good ones soon. See, we've got an old water fountain as well, a water pump, can you see? So the peppercorn was the site of it was even a prison at some point. Some of the French prisoners through the Napoleonic Wars were locked in a site here, and this building here is from 1814. It had many functions. It was even a public toilet at some point. Now it's just used to at daytime they have a little like a little market stall underneath selling fruit and veg and flowers. Anyway, murder. It is sadly a very horrible one as well. There was a gentleman working on this street here. He had lost his wife years and years earlier, so he was living and working here with his housekeeper Elizabeth, and his son. Both of them were called John Chenwell. His son was actually not very nice. He was spending the day at the pub. He famously hated his dad and his housekeeper as well. The housekeeper literally acted almost like a surrogate mum with him, you know. She had been working for his dad for many, many years, and she literally treated him as if he was her son. But the George Jr. didn't care. He was just not very nice to anyone. And one morning, he was so the daddy George Chenwell. So that George Senior was a man of habits. He would. He would go to bed every day at the same time, 9 p.m., and he was always at work very early. He would be at work at 8:30 every day. There was no question about it. And look at this building. I think this one here is from the 16th century. So you have some amazing old buildings here. And he was always at work. And when he didn't go to work in the morning, George Senior, his staff were obviously very worried. One of his staff was William Shallscraft, I think his name was, and he didn't get too worried, and he went to check for him on his bed. Surprisingly, he went upstairs and he did not notice a body in the kitchen, because the poor housekeeper Elizabeth had been brutally attacked. And when they got to George Senior's bedroom, he was on his bed in a pool of blood as well. So the both of them would have been killed because of a big blow on their heads, and then their throat had been slit. Now this was the shop here. So just there, the number 6270. And George lived just above. So this was the kitchen here, where sadly Elizabeth was found. And what really shocked the public opinion, it was not so much the double murder, it's that the guilty men were none other than George Jr. and William. So William worked for the gentleman. So that's what we call parricide. To kill your father. It's a parricide. And so the two of them were caught. There were a lot of eyewitnesses that spotted them on the street when they pretended that they didn't see one another since the Friday. One of them had some notes in his room with blood on them, so they were guilty, and they were executed. But so 1818, the last public execution here in Godalming, and then they were dissected. You might know at the time there was a massive demand for human bodies, so they were indeed dissected right here, in the very same kitchen where they had murdered Elizabeth, the housekeeper. And when that happened, people queued. There were thousands of people here on the high street waiting to enter that very kitchen to see the dissected bodies. So it was two local surgeons that did the job. So yeah, interesting case, quite sad as well. And while we're here, I know this is not a Monopoly tour, but I've got a little flat for you just up there. So you can see the difference in price between, I can stay here, there's a bit of a shelter. You can see the difference in price between London and Surrey, which is not massive. Surrey is actually quite posh. Let me show you the inside. So, oops, I think I've got another one there with me. How much would you pay? It's a one bedroom. So one bedroom just there above the Robert Carder shoe shop. One bedroom, monthly rent. How much would you pay to live here in Godalming? You could commute into London. A lot of people do. It's not far, and it's probably quite expensive in train tickets, but you could. So we're looking for a monthly rent. So yeah, a lot of people do commute. When I used to work in Guildford, I was actually commuting the other way around. I was commuting from London to Guildford, and I could see people on the train opposite me, because there was no one on my train, but in the trains opposite me, there were a lot of people commuting to London every morning. So we're looking for a monthly rent for this lovely one bedroom, just across the street here. So how much would you pay monthly for a one bedroom here? 1,700 says Trish. Tish, you're quite close. Tish says 1,200. Let's wait a second, see if we have any more guesses. Ronnie Lynn, I think you are the closest so far. Sarah, sorry, it's expensive. You're too low. Sarah Painter, you're quite close as well. Laurie, you're quite close. Pisas, you guys are getting very good at this game, really. Let me show you the answer. There we go. So 1,350 a month for a one bedroom. So probably just for a couple or a singleton. So it's not much cheaper than London, but again, Surrey is quite posh. A lot of yummy mummies here, and yes, so not the cheapest place. I should try to take you to some. I'd love to take you to a lot of places, but I don't know if it's financially a good idea. I'd love to take you to Reading. I'd love to take you to Southern-on-Sea. Anyway, look at this piece of street art. I like this one here. It's so cute. Right, so let's go back. It's proper rain. I suppose it looks quite good on camera, but I tell you, it's actually much nicer. It's very cute when the weather is nice. That's the pub, so the Jack Phillips, that's the Wetherspoons where I was hiding earlier. For the ones that don't know, if you're not from the UK, the Wetherspoons, it is a chain. So Jack Phillips, that's the gentleman, the wireless operator on the Titanic. Yeah, it is a chain of pubs that is much cheaper than anywhere else, really. To give you an idea, my coffee, that was coffee as much as you want, 156. When if you go to a Starbucks, it's probably 450. So much cheaper. The big boss, Tim Martin, though, is a bit controversial. He did a massive campaign for Brexit. He was telling everyone that if we stayed in the UK, we'd have to pay our pint 3 times the price. And I personally believe he had quite an influence on the vote. Anyway, look at this. How cute is that? So this is the Crown Court. Oh, let me show you quickly. There's a little map here of everywhere we've been. And it is in the shelter, so I can chill for a minute. There we go. So, is that going to be clear enough? Yeah. So we started up there. The Nightingale Cemetery is here. We came down here. St. Peter's and St. Paul's Church, 222, Church Street. We took Mint Street, 222, Paper Pot, and down here. Where are we? Here. So you can see how old, they've got the dates on every single building. So the church is from the 11th century and the spire 14th century. And that was the site of the last public hanging, as I showed you. So there's the River Way, and there's also a little piece of water earlier. I think it's known as the Hell Dyke. Anyway, let's go. Let me flip this camera to the other hand. It's easier. Up, let's go. Right, so I have a last murder for you before we go. It's not right here in the city centre. It's actually at the Milford Hospital, which is actually closer to Godalming than Milford. 1949, Marjorie Radford was at the hospital because she suffered from tuberculosis. She had been unwell for years, and she had been at the hospital for a few months already. Is there a train station? Yeah, Laurie, yeah. That's where I'm heading to after the tour. I'll head towards the train station. So you have trains to Waterloo. Well, mine, the straight one, I think it's only every hour, but you can stop at Woking and you know, you'd be in London in 1 hour, really. Oh, we were talking about, you know, when we talked about the studio earlier, Jenkin, his artist studio was just down here, somewhere here. Yeah, he was actually renting a shed in somebody's back garden. That's why Emily's mother couldn't understand why he didn't seem to have an address. She didn't trust him very much because she didn't know where he lived. He probably slept in his studio. At the end of just before the murder, he was actually sleeping at Emily's mum. And, oh, you know what, let me show you this building while we're here. So this is the King's Arm, an inn. There were a lot of people travelling from Portsmouth to London, really. And one gentleman that famously stayed here in the late 1600s, it's Tsar Peter the Great. He went to Portsmouth to check the naval ships and everything to create the same in Russia, and he famously stayed here with a lot of Russian. It was a different building at the time. Apparently they ate a lot and they drank a lot, and they left without paying the bill. It is said that the building is haunted today. They have a couple of ghosts. And oh, I told you I would show you the pub. So the pub when Jenkin went you know, after the murder, when he talked about going to Egypt and everything, it's the Sun straight ahead, so that's the pub. Anyway, let's get back to Marjorie. So Marjorie is at hospital here, 1949. This was the time where Britain was still under rationing, you know, food was still quite sparse. And her husband, Fred Radford, he was some kind of a pharmacist. He was dealing with chemicals for the hospital. He kept bringing her some jelly, some pie, a lot of food, amazing foods, which seemed to be so generous because, you know, we were rationed at the time. So he was so generous to give her so much food. Marjorie was dying. She was gonna die. They said at the time she would have been dead by summer. Yet, every time she had the food from her husband, she felt really sick. And she started to actually suspect that Fred might have been tampering with the food, really. He didn't bring the food himself. He gave it to her dad, James Kite. So very often it was actually Marjorie's dad bringing the food, but she was very much aware that it came from Fred. He didn't actually visit her that often when he walked by the hospital, And she started to suspect something was up. One day she refused to eat the food because every time she did, she was vomiting. And her dad, James, actually took it home, and one of Marjorie's sons ate it, and he felt extremely sick. He was vomiting for 3 days. But yet, although she had some doubts, you don't really suspect your husband of poisoning you, especially when you're already dying anyway. And eventually, she decided to tell her friend Lillian. Well, she was a doctor at the hospital, but she had been there for so long that they started to be friends. She told Lillian that she suspected the food, and she had just be given a pie on plums. She had a quarter of the pie, and she felt very unwell. So Lillian took it seriously. She took the pie away, where the 3/4 of the pie, and she decided to give it to Dr. Allison. So she put the pie on his desk, and she also put a little letter. Because of the nature of the accusation, she wrote on the envelope, private and confidential. So the secretary or whoever it was, they took the envelope away to put it in a safe place because it was so confidential, of course. And the doctor was actually away. When he came back 3 days later, he found three quarters of a pie on his desk. So he had a slice. Well, 2 hours later, he was feeling extremely unwell. He got home, but in a very bad state. Luckily, he only had a bit. And the next morning, when he came back to work, the secretary gave him the letter, the one that said private and confidential. Oh my God, fish and chips. And then when he read the letter, of course, then he understood what this was all about. He had been himself poisoned. So they sent the pie to Scotland Yard technical team, and it was indeed full of arsenic. Unfortunately, by the time the result came back on 12th of April, Marjorie had died that very afternoon. Oh, let's see the letterbox here. This is George V. Look. So yeah, Marjorie had passed away, and the police decided to go and arrest Fred, the husband. I'm sorry, my bad. I just hit somebody with my umbrella. No, I hit somebody's umbrella with my umbrella, so that's not so bad. And I'm now sheltered. Yoo-hoo! Fred is arrested. He was, of course, interviewed by the police, and he was like, why would I kill my wife when she's dying anyway? And being a physician, I mean, the chemist, he knew exactly that arsenic would be very well spotted, if any autopsy was to be done, of course. So the police suspected him big time, because he admitted that he was the one that brought the food, he didn't have any excuse really, but anyone could have tampered with the food. So they had to let him go. They had to bring him home. Well, at the hospital, he lived by the hospital, and the next morning when they came back to arrest him again, he had taken his own life. He had poisoned himself with prussic acid. He left a letter saying that he he realized that everything looked very bad for him, that he looked very guilty when he did not, that whatever was in his wife's body was a mystery for him too. Although prussic acid, it's a nice way to go compared to arsenic. That's horrible, you know. He could have been a bit nicer with his wife. Some say that it might have been some kind of euthanasia, you know, to make it easier for her. But no, because arsenic is not an easy way to go, and she was clearly unaware of it at first, at least. So no, it was indeed murder. It was the investigation. They did conclude that he was guilty, but he was dead anyway. They couldn't find him a motive at first because she was dying. Then there's a lady that came out of nowhere from London that turned up to be his wife. So the guy was a bigamist. She was his wife from like 20 years before. She was, you know, they were never unmarried or you know. So he was a bigamist, and it turned up that he had a mistress. So the only motive we could find him was to get his mistress home and married quicker. So he was probably just trying to make it a bit quicker. But yeah, what a horrible case as well. And that was here at the Godalming hospital. Anyway, it's going to be the end of the tour. Let me know if you have any questions for me before we go. If not, thank you very much for coming today. I'll make it to the 10 bells for last orders. Probably I could. I'm not gonna go to the pub. I'm gonna go straight home to warm up. But I wonder if my chat might be. I don't get anything in the chat at the moment. I think it might be stuck. It's always at the end of the tour that the chat gets stuck. So anyway, thank you very much for coming today. Oh, here we go. Everything is coming now. Thank you, Tish. Thank you, Sandrine. Thanks, Ronnie. If you have any questions, let me know in the chat. If not, hopefully I'll see some of you on Sunday. We're heading to Great Marlborough Street. Thank you, Julie. Thank you, Trish. Thanks, Lethargy. Thanks, Pisas. And if any of you left me a little tip on PayPal or buy me a coffee or wherever it might be, thank you very much in advance. It's greatly appreciated. It is thanks to that generosity that I can keep doing those tours. Thank you, Mary. Thank you. And yeah, keep YouTubing. Hopefully I'll see you on Sunday. If not, the Sunday after that, we're heading to Notting Hill. Some of you were asking for Notting Hill, so it's coming. Thank you, Debbie. Thanks, Roberta. Thanks, Sarah. Thanks, Madame Z. Let me see if I've missed any questions. Cool. I don't think I've missed any questions, so I'm gonna run to my train. Thank you, Caroline, and hopefully I'll see some of you on Sunday. And another movie. Oh yeah, for Notting Hill, I have to watch a few movies. I've actually, you know what? I've actually bought DVDs, as Mike was. I think it was Mike the other day suggesting, because it's actually much cheaper to buy an old DVD than streaming these days. But so far. What is it I received? Oh, Love Actually. It's not working. So I'm going to have to go to a friend's home that has a DVD player to see if it works in his DVD player. So I've got a few movies to watch for Notting Hill. And another romantic comedy, yes. Right. Bye, guys. See you later. See you on Sunday. And have a good evening, a good morning, whatever time it is for you, wherever you are in the world. Bye-bye.